right.
How's it going, Mike?
Wonderful, Frank.
Right on.
Good to see you.
Did you have a good week?
I did. I did.
Nice.
Had its fun ups and downs.
That's what life's about. It's
Right.
one big wave.
Exactly.
Just
Had a lot of good experiences.
Right on. All right. Well, welcome back to Perspective Shift. I am Frank,
I am Mike.
and we're here to help you shift your perspective.
Give
If
you
you want
the-
to. No one's going to twist your arm or nothing, because it doesn't matter.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We're here to talk nonsense.
That's all it is.
It's pretty much what it is.
Hanging on for fun.
There you go.
What do you want to talk about today?
I'm not sure. What do you feel like talking about?
Well, I mean,
You know what struck me today? Somebody sent me a video, and again, we look at everything as perspective, right?
Okay.
And how you look at it. But yet, a lot of these videos, and this is kind of like pertaining to COVID-19 and we should not wear a mask type of thing.
okay.
So within these perspectives, these type of perspectives, well, they're not wrong, but they don't work. And why? They're trying to compete against another one.
That's the only reason they exist.
Yeah, and it was funny. I was watching, and all of a sudden, like I'm watching, like, oh man, what the hell am I wearing a mask for? I realize I'm getting sucked into this thing, and
It's serving its purpose.
it did. Like it drew me in for a second. I'm like, wow. I'm like, okay. But what was cool about it is, as I got drawn in, something in me triggered and said, well, wait a minute. Even though this sounds like good and valid information, I don't want to be sucked into a side or to one side of thing. I want to have an overview perspective, right? That's how I just live my life easy that way. But it actually made me realize, like, okay, it was cool that I started getting sucked in, but something was like, hey, Frank, wake up. What are you doing? Come on. You know better than that.
That's your higher self.
Yeah, exactly. You get smacked in the back of the head like my dad says, all right, I'm taking out the garbage, leave me alone.
Exactly.
Jesus Christ. And that's kind of what I talk about is in this time of division, people are like, oh my God, there's so much division. I'm like, but we're creating the division. Division isn't an entity outside of the human existence. We create it, all right? So when you notice division, stop dividing yourself, and you literally change the platform of the world in which you live in. You don't need everyone else to do it, but become example. So this gentleman I was listening to had a valid point, but when he's fighting against another one, I'm sure I could watch another video opposing his viewpoint and say that guy has a valid point as well. But just like the head of a quarter is valid, and so is the tail of the quarter is valid, and my conclusion is they both support each other, so why are they fighting with each other? And once we understand that, in the competition of an idea, what you're fighting for or fighting against is the very thing that's supporting your idea.
And that's where we go wrong, though.
Well, that's where we get bumpy.
Yeah.
I don't even want to say we get wrong, because it's an experience.
Mm-hmm.
Competition is experience. But in the field of competition, things start to fragment and break down after a while. All right? Because even if I win the game, then I have to keep up. I have to hold the trophies, so I have to worry about it. But in the field of collaboration, everything expands, and you never have to worry. So collaboration is almost like running a relay race where you hand the baton off to somebody else when you're working in unison with someone. It's like playing music with a 5-piece band or orchestra, and you're just one instrument playing it. You're not competing. The violinist isn't competing with the celloist or the horn section. Can you imagine what that would sound like? It would sound like a riot. You know? People are like, what the hell's Frankie doing? There's my imitations of a horn and something, but what to do is when we actually collaborate, and right now, because divisiveness is so strong and people are fighting, it's becoming point to where the people fighting get so tired of it, and they're gonna realize, oh, they're gonna collaborate. It's like, oh, what do you got there? Peanut butter. What do you got? Chocolate. You keep your damn peanut butter away from my chocolate, and then one day they're like, yeah, oh, here you go, right? And that's all of a sudden you realize, wow, what collaboration does. It takes two things or multiple things, puts them together, and makes another thing. Just like a man and woman makes a child. Is a whole unit, and actually everything starts to fragment. You look, 1, 2 things make 3. Everything in unison during the tetrahedron, everything is formed out of that. It's the geometry of the physical world. But when the parents are fighting with each other, they're certainly not making babies, right? I don't know why I said babies.
I know exactly.
I don't know why I said that, but so at this time, when you witness this type of thing, don't deny the information, but sit back and say, okay, that's a valid point, that's a valid point. They're both valid points because they support each other. But just like the heads of a quarter and the tails of a quarter support each other. But no matter what side I look at, it's still worth 25 cents. And that's the value of the field of energy is the quarter. Yes, I might prefer to look at the heads of a quarter than the tail. And that's okay. But I'm not ignorant enough to try to saw the back of the quarter off to get rid of the tails, because now I just got a mangled up piece of metal that's not worth anything. And as we fight more and more and mangle up quarters, so to speak, people will stop doing it and step back. So there's nothing wrong with this information. For me, it was a test. I don't need to stop people talking, because there's divisiveness that if they don't agree with me, I need to stop listening to them. I know there's a quarrel with people at Spotify because Joe Rogan, I'm not going to get the story, Joe Rogan had somebody on there interviewer, and the people that were working there felt it very divisive. They didn't like it. So they tried to get it off the air. So now they want to look at everything Joe Rogan does and say he ought not to say that. But I'm like, yeah, but don't you see the dilemma?
Where does it stop?
Who are you? Yeah, exactly. So eventually, when it came to the conclusion, I read the whole article really quick. It came to like the board of people like, nah, this is what this show's about. Mm-hmm. You don't like it, you could tune off. But ask yourself, why don't you like it? Where do you want to go from? Where are you trying to hide from? It could simply just be other nonsense. It doesn't mean you need to grow from it. You just don't give it any attention. And that leads up to what we were talking about earlier. Whatever you give your attention to, you personally, well, collectively, if you're doing it, you will see the expansion of it. It's law. There's no way around it. So, if we give our attention to peace, we see peace expand. If we give our attention to war, we see war expand. You can't defy these laws. You simply can't. You could try to, go for it. But that's why it continues coming down to that.
And I know this is a sensitive topic, but like, what was that Morgan Freeman quote you always told me about?
Well, yeah, it wasn't a quote necessarily. It was a response to an answer. And it was in an interview, and a lot of racism come up, and the interviewer was talking about different and things about it. And Morgan Freeman was pretty 1 or 2 word answers, just very to the point, you know. And then the person asked him, like, well, how do we stop racism? And his answer was simply stop talking about it. And what he's saying is, don't give your attention to it. Mm-hmm. All right? Because whatever you give your attention to grows. Now, if you don't understand that, you think giving your attention to it will get rid of it. No, it just grows more. And
that's the loop people are.
Yes, it is.
We get stuck in is that if we think, by not putting attention on it, I'm ignoring it, and we're taught don't ignore things, it will just get worse. No.
Because the thing about this, the thing about ignore means, I mean, it comes from another word is ignorance. So ignore is ignorance, right? So if I'm ignoring racism, people say that's bad. You should give full attention to racism. Don't ignore it. Well, then, on the other hand, I'm ignoring the solution to racism. So if I'm looking west, somebody can easily say, "Hey, you're ignoring east." But if I'm waiting for the sun to set, I'm actually focusing on west. I'm I'm not necessarily ignoring east. I just know looking west is where the sun's going to set. So people like to use this play of words of I'm ignoring. Well, if I'm ignoring this, then I must be ignoring. If I'm ignoring the problem,
Must be.
therefore, on the other hand, I'm ignoring the solution. So instead of looking at the word ignoring or ignorance, move towards what it is you want to see and focus on that. And the cool thing is, in the quantum field, and the quantum field exists on this three-dimensional plane. Different attributes of it we'll experience here. We get other dimensions. Again, it's like talking about dinner at breakfast time. Let's deal with this meal. There's no sense of it, but I know dinner's going to show up, so I'm not like worrying about the smell of this meal. But when I sit here and look at that, I'm going to focus on something I want to see and expand. I do not need 51% or greater to get my viewpoint in order to see it come to fruition at all. I singly and solely can create things happen in my world. And when I go about my way, I will notice the outcome, others will notice the outcome. You know, someone mathematically came up with this answer, an equation that said only 1/10 of 1% of population of this planet needs to be in a positive realm in order for this place to be in a place of understanding of peace where it won't implode onto each other. 1/10 of 1%. That's nowhere near 51%, in which the government is fighting for in order to get their particular candidate in, which when I look at it, it's the heads and the tail of the quarter.
All day long.
Yeah. So, you know, if you like the heads, great. If you like the tail, great. They support each other. And if they would see that, would they get on to the debate stage? Two people debating a subject. They expand within their ideology and they go to a whole other place. Debates aren't meant to try to make myself right. The ultimate empirical understanding of a debate is I have an understanding based on my experiences up till this moment in time. That person has an understanding up to this moment in time, experience on their behalf. And we're going to take a topic, a subject that we're both interested in. And as we debate, it's like, wow, I never looked at it that way. Boom. I never looked at it that way. Boom. Boom. But if we hold our stance, nothing is gained other than the audience gets a headache.
And that's the weird part we're seeing as a society and a culture right now.
We're starting to break out of it though.
We're holding ground on these different things. And why? Because it's our ego. Yeah. Our ego needs us to hold on to these things. Oh, I'm a Republican. Oh, I'm a Democrat.
Yeah.
And we define ourselves with these honestly arbitrary.
So if you're an independent, be happy.
Seriously. If you're all three, be happy.
An independent's like the red ribbon in the middle of a tug of war. Mm-hmm. So yeah, whichever way it goes. But the truth is, when I look around and I take just an arbitrary glance in those moments where I can not have an opinion, which, you know, I'm human. I look around and I'm like, yeah, it is getting better. And I hear it all the time. It's like, you know, this started years ago. Like, I'm going to vote for the best candidate. I'm no longer voting on party lines. You know, I'm not, you know, certain people, I'm not listening to the news anymore. I'm not listening to particular news anymore. I'm listening to both news stations. I'm gathering information. I'm finally going to see what works for me. I'm not going to buy into another program because I already came with mine. All right? We're all pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. And somehow a jigsaw piece of puzzle said everyone ought to be on this side. So they go over there. I'm like, well, you're not really going to find out what the puzzle or the tapestry of the field of the picture is unless everyone plays their part. And the part wasn't placed in the aspect of division. It was to find the connection where we connect, you know? But I was once watching a movie, or it was a TV show, I forgot, and I found this, I cracked up laughing. There was a guy sitting at a table with a jigsaw puzzle and he had a file. And he's filing the pieces to make them fit. And like you laugh because it's absurd, because what's it going to look like? It's going to look like nothing, you know, that's conclusive. Like, it's ridiculous. Nothing's gained out of it, but yet It's kind of what
us going through life.
It's what we're doing right now, trying to get people to think Republican or think Democrat or think conservative or think liberal. And I'm like, hey, they're two sides of a coin. Conservatism supports liberalism. Liberalism supports conservatism. You know, the conservation of something, I want to liberate out of it. You know, those two subjects were never meant to fight against each other. It's funny. It's like kids fighting on a seesaw. Boom! And the kid holds. Remember that kid holds up there, but then they get bored. What they do is just slam it down. I'm winning. No, I'm winning. I'm winning. And then like this is the game here. It's like this fluidity. Mm-hmm. But by all means, do that. And guess what? No one's going to get on the seesaw with you. But which side's the best? And then when you really get pissed off, you take a saw. You cut it. The cool thing about the universal laws, you can't cut them. You can't defy them. You can try, just like you can try swimming up a stream. And even Mark Spitz, or Michael Phelps, Mark Spitz, show my age, Mike Phelps, would eventually tire out. But if he went downstream, he could his strokes would be just to steer him to this bank or that bank. He would never get exhausted. He would just stroke, boom. But if he's swimming upstream, he will peter out. I don't care who you are. We're meant to move with the stream. And in that, we can then experience and move towards each bank of the stream based on the preferential experience you want to have. Yeah. But when you're swimming upstream, your only job is to try to gain some momentum and ground, and you ain't. Second you have a cramp in your leg, you float downstream.
I think like a big thing for me this week that I was thinking a lot about was how much the ego we have defines the way we look at things. So where I'm going with this is, I really realized that I have a brain, and in that brain, that thoughts come, right? And so those thoughts I've been defining as my own, and I've been assigning a meaning to them when I have them. So if they come up, and if it's something that's non-preferential, I'll get upset with myself in a way where I'm like, in a way I am judging my own thoughts, and my ego is protecting them as my thoughts.
Yeah.
But in reality, they're not my thoughts. They're simply thoughts, and I'm here to experience it. Just like what we're talking about, we keep assigning this meaning, my meaning, and we're out there protecting it vigorously.
Yeah. And
we need to loosen up on that to see a full picture, to see both sides of the coin.
Yeah, because if you don't loosen up,
you're forced to only see one side, the side you chose.
And then eventually you pass out and you'll loosen up anyway. It's like trying to hold your breath.
But the thing is, we think because it's our side that it is right, and we'll defend it till death.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, and that's why we're being limited in any sort of growth or to elevate or expand, as we say.
But that's how I see this potentiality of human existence expanding, because years ago, people really fought for their ideologies and stuff like that. Not that they're not now, but there's a phrase that people are saying now. It's like, would you rather be right or happy? Because when you're happy, you're right. So you get both. Just don't let the other person know. It's like, can I be both? I'm like, yes, but happiness is the way to being right. Mm-hmm. Because when you're happy, it doesn't really matter.
Nope.
You know, then you take the peanut butter and the chocolate and you
have why? Because only feeling is what matters.
Yes.
That's the thing. We get that really confused. Not human.
Why does feeling only matter? Because feeling is a frequency vibration, and when it's focused, it literally creates physical matter. Physical matter can't create more matter. Like a chair here.
Can't create another chair.
Can't create another chair. But a human being can look at a chair and say, oh, I like that chair, we need more, and move on forth and actually create another chair. Mm-hmm. So it comes into that field. So what we focus on, we solidify into the physical matter. So people are looking, and again, if you look at something and it excites you, remember, it wasn't the thing that excited you, but the thing can perpetuate the excitement. The excitement is what actually created the thing. Just like I looked in the mirror, I'm like, oh, my hair looks good. Well, the mirror had nothing to do with my hair at all. It was, so I created the hair, I looked in the mirror, and because the mirror reflected back to me, just like every physical thing in the outside world, because it is all a hologram, if you will, just vibrating frequency, so dense that it feels solid, but it's not. You just can't move to it like a magnet. I feel like a magnet, you feel the pressure, but you can't see anything. But when I look at the mirror and I see my hair, it then helps perpetuate that feeling that created the hair in which I like. But it's not the causation, it just perpetuates it. The outside world was never the causation, but it happened so quickly in a quantum fashion that you can mistakenly say, I'm happy when I'm at the beach. No, don't sign the beach happiness. Please don't do that. Because one day you'll go to the beach and you won't be feeling happy, and then you'll be like,
I broke the beach.
I broke the beach. Or, you know, oh, and then you look around, oh, well, last time I was here, that person wasn't on the beach. Let's get rid of that person. And then wars start over individuals or things. We stop moving stuff. You were happy. You happened to consciously notice you were at the beach. And when you did, the beach then helped perpetuate the feeling. But it was never the causation. The causation was in here. And then you project out. Because if you've never been to the beach, one would say, well, you've never been happy.
See, I love where you were going with all that, because like how you're talking about.
I don't even know where I'm going.
Well, we all don't. Yeah. We're just along for the ride.
We're just wandering around.
Yeah. Enjoy it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so like matter. This a chair can't create another chair. This is what we need to realize our gift is as human beings in this world. So, what's his name? I love this guy, Sadhguru. Sadhguru always says, you know, a lion doesn't grow up and say, how can I be the best lion? A lion just eats, you know, and a lion enjoys, or eats food, grows big, and becomes a lion. He doesn't sit there and go, oh, I must go to lion college to become the best lion. So, just like...
How fast did that lion do the mile?
Yeah. The little things we put on it.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, a lion doesn't create. Human beings, we're actually creating. We're given this whole set of extremely exquisite talents and gifts to manifest and create matter. So... when we realize this gift,
wouldn't that be interesting? You go out into the plane and a lion is driving in a Hummer. Really, you had the same idea as me.
That was pretty different.
That's all nonsense.
That's the thing. Is it's like, okay, we can create. How do we create? We create from thoughts and imagination and energy. And so we are all looking. In the third dimension, we're all looking out there for all of these answers, right?
Yeah.
But we need to realize, just like a chair cannot create another chair, we cannot create happiness with other matter. We need to create that from within. We need to start at the energy source and create, and we'll see it out in front of us, just like we're making a chair. Matter will not create matter that's going to make us happy. So stop trying to change the outside in order to see what you want to see. You can only polish a turd so many times. Yeah. What I'm saying is, you got to go within. So stop looking for the answer out there and in here. That's why Frank and I really preach this meditation and that modality is, at least especially for me, things really clicked for me when I began meditating. And this was because I realized all of the answers I hold within. And just like Frank, just like you guys at home, we all have the answers. Frank and I are here to show you have the answers within you. We are not providing you answers.
No, you certainly don't want answers from me.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. We've made our fair share of all sorts of crazy mistakes in the third dimension.
And through experiences, whether they're preferential or non-preferential, and if you actually start to understand these laws, you start to look at it differently. It's like, oh, because even as I start to learn a car and I understand the functionality of a car, it doesn't mean I'm never going to hit a curb. But if I'm still hitting a curb 10 years into driving, maybe I should get a cab and, get a limo driver or something. And it's like, yeah. But, so these are part of it, but it's understanding. But if you had a car and you know the functionality of it, it would just be a big metal structure, almost like a sculpture that you can go inside of it, you close it up, but you don't realize it moves.
Kind of like how kids look at the world.
Yeah, and this is how...
They don't get it quite yet.
They don't understand the functionality of things. And if you don't understand the functionality of how these laws generate, so go within and project out like a projector. Like, in order to change a movie that you don't like, you don't go up to the screen, do you?
Tear it
Unless
down.
you want to do the puppet things, whatever. You don't tear it down. You go within the projector, you remove the reel, or splice a section out, add a new one in, put a whole new movie in. That light projector is the same projector that showed thousands and billions of movies. It never changed. The reel of film is your imagination. When you use your imagination plus the light that's given by God and you put it out there, it will then go...
Let there be light.
And then all of a sudden, the outside world is nothing but a dome screen. So to walk to the screen, to change the screen, is ridiculous. So go within, what's going within? In this analogy, you go into the cutting room, splice it, I like that scene better. But because I like that scene better, I got an idea for another movie. It doesn't end. Oh my God. Next time I'm gonna do this. That one's complete. I like that one, but now I got something that's greater and greater. I continuously make movies. What I don't want to do is keep running over and over. Well, it's the only movie I got. This is up. Look what's going to happen.
But we all run that same movie.
We do, because we think we don't want to go beyond the scope. And this is what we talked about earlier.
Well, why? You're comfortable.
Yeah. Well, you're comfortable because
you're safe and you're in the know.
Yeah, you're predictable. But the comfortable with then eventually, is you sit on a couch long enough, it's very uncomfortable.
Oh, trust me, I know.
You get bed sores, you get all this stuff.
But that's the universe forcing you to change.
Exactly. That is the laws. So they're
that's
always
exactly.
Yeah.
Not change is the only constant.
Yeah. That's why, like, when I get
That's the only
aggravated,
thing. It's like, get out, mother.
Like right now, when I get aggravated or agitated, it pops me into consciousness. So now, when I get agitated, I laugh because the agitation realized I was getting distracted from what I was focused on, and it took me out of whack, and that's what agitation is. Agitation is like you're driving a car now, and if you're slowly drifting, you hear beep, 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 beep. And if you actually move back into the center of your lane, that beep, beep, beep stops. But can you imagine you had no idea and you cross the lanes back and forth, your whole drive's like beep, 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 beep. This is why people kill each other. Because I'm like, do you realize if you stay in the middle lane and don't switch over, that beep will stop? In other words, if you stay focused in your lane, you won't get agitated. So agitation is like, I almost got sucked into that. And because of that, I get agitated. It'll be a longer time before I get agitated because once I'm kicked into awareness because of agitation brings me into awareness. Distraction will be more difficult.
So what Frank just described is literally the reprogramming that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So Frank recognized that agitation, that feeling that we all have, right? That agitation. Okay, I recognize what this is. I understand that my body has responded to this chemical and this feeling as agitation, and I feel this way. So knowing and separating from himself from that, now he's able, when a chemical kicks in and he feels that agitation, that sweat, the whatever on his mind, it's now a new method that he looks at where it kicks him back into reality.
I start laughing. People are like, what the hell's wrong with this guy?
That's the repro. So rather than allowing that stress to constantly consume you, you have the ability to reprogram it.
Yeah, like, what's wrong with me? I'm like, they're not wrong.
That's the perfect example. Like, couldn't be any more exactly what we're talking about, self-regulation.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing here. And so take anything that, if you could take something that you once looked at as negative, such as anger, depression, whatever it is, and you can at any moment change and shift your perspective on it.
I love that.
You will have a different outcome of feeling, and when you have a different outcome of feeling, you project that out into the outside world, and it forever changes.
That's why the saying.
You use the negative as a positive, and all successful people do that.
You look at the things different, the things will change.
And that's the free will of humanity.
Exactly.
People think, no,
Free
this
will.
is how it's defined in the Webster. This is how it must be. I'm like, no.
So far from
no.
it. So far from
Not my
Webster's.
dictionary.
Yeah.
My Webster's.
Not mine.
I never met Webster, by the way.
Sure, he's a great guy.
So yeah, I'm sure he is. Talks a lot.
Yeah.
Got a lot of verbiage.
Pages and pages.
So you want to start with Z today?
Oh God.
Yeah, yeah. So, and we're actually straight right now. We're not. Yeah, we're just. This
We're
is
good.
This is who we are.
This is us level.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's really is. So when you're able to do that, once you realize they can turn around, you own the world. You create the world. Nothing will ever bother you. You'll never be upset and never know why again.
Well, you're experiencing rather than reacting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're responding.
Oh, there you go. Responding rather than reacting.
Reaction like, oh my God. Responding is like, oh my God.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh my
And
God.
that's where we ultimately want to be. When you're in, so a big thing that like what we're talking about is that reaction or the feelings like the agitation before he obviously completely reprogrammed himself. That is living in what do they call it? Survival mode. And
yeah.
When you live in survival mode was given to us back when we had to hunt for food, when we needed to hide for shelter, safety, whatever.
Yeah.
We needed that. Well, we're so far from that moment that we're now using our fight or flight responses in the most ludicrous ways.
Oh my God, I got a bill. Oh my God. And the things you can't
Fight
run
or
from
flight,
it.
fight or
Oh,
flight.
yeah. Go to the bar.
And yeah, exactly.
At least if a
Go to the
lion
bar,
was chasing you, you would be
go
running
with
and
it.
breathing, and you'd take your cortisol and move it up. But again, what's interesting, we say way back when we were running on the planes from Lion or whatever it is, what's interesting is this is how we know we live in a quantum universe, not in a linear universe. Now they're realizing, well, there was a time before cavemen where there was intelligent beings that were able to build stuff and more technology, and these timelines are getting very, like
Further
wow,
and further
interesting.
back, too.
Now, I am not historian, so I won't place into this anything, but when they go back in human history, in roughly about 25,000 years, human history almost to the Cro-Magnon or whatever, and moving forward, well, it's like, well, they look at these other devices, pyramids on the planet, like it goes way beyond that. So there must have been sophistication. So how did we get from there to here? I'm like, stop thinking linear in that case. Being Cro-Magnon is an experience. Being alien-esque is another experience. Is one better than the other? Absolutely not. You know? I yearn for the days of hitting a woman on the head. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I swear to God, I'm just joking.
They know you're joking.
I am joking. You better know I'm joking. It'll be a soundbite. I'll be all over the freaking internet.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I do not agree with the
condone
Cro-Magnon.
any of that.
For all we know, the Cro-Magnon are very sophisticated. Maybe the women banged them over the head and took them into the cave. Is anyone ever thinking that?
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
Change perspective.
it's shifting perspective. I'm going to tell a whole new historian story. It wasn't the men, it was the women.
And guess what? It would be true.
Yes, it would. If I got enough evidence. If I wrote a book, I could get at least one person to buy into it.
But that's the thing. Anything is true. And it's funny when you realize this concept and you really know it, all truths are truest.
If you buy into it,
Oh,
you're
gosh.
going to. And what is truth? It's the experience. And what's the experience? It's the field of energy that's running through you.
Well, hold on. So you said this to me earlier before we started recording. And I think this is like awesome for people listening. But do you remember what we were talking about when you brought up like if murder is bad?
Yes.
So this is a big thing. So like we at home, when you're going through these techniques, you're gonna try to be like, well, what if this happened? Or yeah. So you're gonna have this going through this awakening, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. When you're going through this process of you understanding yourself and learning who you are, you're going to start to challenge certain things. You're like, well, what if, this happens and then this? You're going to try to find the holes in all of these theories.
Yeah.
Trust me, you will. Like, I went through it. I'm sure Frank went through it. It's that half in, half out feeling.
Yeah, and which it's actually, to really dive into something and fully invest yourself into it, being a skeptic in this day and age is a brilliant place to be. You don't want to be gullible because you'll fully not understand what it is you're experiencing. And a cynic will simply not experience anything more than what they're used to. But somebody that's a skeptic, like, all right, I see what you're saying. Let me look into it further. And then what it is you eventually come to your own conclusion with a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and you make it your own. So you don't buy into something, but you certainly don't ignore it or throw it away, because a piece of this information that's given, not the whole thing, will add to my new story and help me develop my whole new experience that's brand new. All right? Einstein had to study Newton and other scientists, and even ones that were before him. Newton was roughly 200 years before Einstein, and even contemporaries. But at some point he had to let go of it in order to come up with special relativity, because no one studied it. But yet there was something in there, and not from a causation or linear perspective. He literally came and one day had to explain E equals mc squared to no one that knew what he was talking about. It wasn't, if I take this brick and this brick, we can make a whole new house. Well, we're familiar with bricks, it's just a new house. He took out a whole new thing that was already there. He just discovered it and had to reconfigure. And then everyone else, some guy had this idea. Now that you put this idea out there, my idea, it's like, oh, I had chocolate, and I didn't know what to do with the chocolate. And all of a sudden, someone invented peanut butter. Oh my God, now we can be best buddies. And here comes a marshmallow and a graham cracker. Oh my God, what's next? And as we do that, we don't deny, because if somebody is giving me information, I almost want to some degree, assume my higher self is placing that in front of me. Not to fully emulate, because it's already been done, but to find out what's in that, and to some degree cherry pick, to take it and add it to your thing, to have a whole new experience. And that's what we came here to do. We came here to go beyond what's already existing into something new. And me and Mike do it through a conversation. So that's kind of what the experience is about.
I love that. Yeah. No, absolutely. What I was referring to when I was talking about that earlier, what we were talking about though is we can all agree that murder is wrong, right?
Yeah, because we all agree to it. Yeah, we all agree to that.
We all agree murder, it's horrible, it's wrong, right?
Well, we do, but again, now,
but I want to drive this point home to anybody listening, because this really is, so you can look at anything from any way you want. Yeah, is what we're trying to say.
All right. So let's start with the basics. What is murder?
Yeah.
Murder is when another human being kills another being, right? So because then we have degrees of it, right?
Oh,
so if somebody if a soldier's at war, that degree is highly acceptable, right? And I'm not here to change anyone's mind on this, all right? But when someone just does it for no reason that anyone could pertain or look at, in murder, we call that murder, or murder one, premeditated, all right? Then there's other ones. So they're all different. Murder is murder, but they're all degrees of perspectives of it.
But I love how you said, what if you're at war? Is that still murder? What if a woman's being raped and you kill the guy raping? Is that murder?
Actually, all of it is murder, but what's acceptable without what we call the outward punishment or shaming of. So murder is murder. It's like, soldier goes to war, you ever kill someone? You ever murder someone? It's like, yeah. But, if someone went out and killed someone and the FBI is looking for them, they're not really going to sit around talking about it, because society came to an agreement where it's not acceptable. And why murder or killing another human being across all facets? Like, obviously the soldier does it, to not keep themselves alive necessarily, but to keep their body alive, there is a justification in feeling. But yet, you ask anyone that's ever killed somebody, they always have an issue with it. Why? Because in a corporeal setting, and the reason we have an issue with it is because there is a misunderstanding. Because each human being carries around an energy field. So we think we eliminated that energy field. You really didn't eliminate it, you transformed it.
You can't.
You can't.
Energy cannot be
When we
created or
die,
destroyed.
but the thing is we also know the value of humans, and if we collaborated rather than fight against each other, that human can help me expand my life. Right now, fighting doesn't do that. And even a soldier will tell you that. No soldier wants to get out and kill. They don't. It's just part of their job, and they know that. But like if a woman was being attacked and she had to kill, she didn't want to kill the perpetrator, but it was ordered to live and tell the story. But yet it will still haunt them. They don't overlook it. Because people that witness it, oh, you got lucky. It's like, no, not really. You know, they ended a life, even though their life was trying to kill them. You can't just justify it away, because there is something in all of us that understands energy and the field. But that being said, how do we get over it? Go to the base root of everything. And this fundamental understanding is what helps me a lot. And I don't use it as an excuse. Because actually, when you fully understand this, you wouldn't want to do that. And you would actually find yourself not in positions of doing it either. But we are eternal. And I can't prove this outright, but I know it. And the only way I could get people to glance at it, and I've mentioned this before, and you're going to hear me mention it again. But when I look at my high school picture,
Yearbook?
My yearbook picture, I see a face of a 17-year-old kid that's no longer here. That corporeal body is no longer here. My 5-year-old corporeal body is no longer here. But there was something in the 5-year-old, the baby at birth, all these times, and there's something in this 53-year-old body that always existed, and it was in all those bodies. But the corporealness had disappeared. And biologists today will say every 7 years you have a completely new body. Well, within the quantum field, your body's shifting in and out of frequencies billions of times per second. So billions of times per second you have a different frequency. So therefore you essentially have a different body. But I'm not here to pull straws, but we know my 15-year-old, my 18-year-old body is no longer here. But there is something that was in that body that's in this body. And that shows me from the fractal aspects of how life is that we are eternal. Now, when the fluidity of this corporeal self, so even when I'm 90 years old, someone could see the correlation, they look close. Okay, I see that was you at 18 and I see you at 90. Now, when that corporeal frequency, continuous frequency dies off, the thing that was in the 18, the 50, and the 90-year-old, when it dies, continues on. So when you understand life is eternal, all you did was transform energy when you killed somebody. And when you fully understand that, you would never want to kill somebody, because you would almost take the bullet, because
it's not your place to.
No, because then you got to walk around with, you just disrupted the field. All right. Now, people that have done it in therapies and other stuff, they explain that they actually can overcome it. I've heard of women getting this idea that have been raped and overcome it. It's almost looking at the woman that was raped is no longer here. They can do that, can pull away. Again, this experience I've had with women telling me this, where you think, wow, how can you get over that? Because you got to come from that rudimentary understanding that we're eternal. And it didn't happen to me. It just happened to that field of energy there.
On the flip side, that feeling, anytime you go back and you have that experience mentally, thought-wise, anything, your body doesn't know the difference.
No.
You are reliving that moment, and your body feels it. Your body thinks it's actually happening. So that's why trauma, lifetime trauma, etc., when you have that in your background and you're constantly revisiting it, you're constantly reliving it. you're feeling it, you're living it, you're sending it out, you're only going to have it come back. It's so horrible. It's like being raped over and over and over.
It is, but it isn't, because the first time someone goes through something, the heightened sense of that perspective will diminish.
Never be unmatched.
It will never,
or
ever
never be matched.
Because it won't. And that's what happens. So people say time heals all wounds, and I'm like, well, it's one way of putting it. But what heals all wounds is perspective shifting. And in the linear perspective shifting can take time when you relate it to time. You can have leaps. Some people can have an incident happen to them, same incident, and some got over it. I don't say got over it, but changed their perspective to where it didn't slow them down in a preferential life than others.
And again, I always like to drive this home. In no way are Frank and I ever minimizing any sort of experience that you have with you. Trust me, Frank and I each have forever had our own type of demons, anything you want to call it, that we had to come from. What we're saying is, it's an option. You have a choice in front of you.
Yeah.
To look at this as something defeating, or as something as that is going to, you're going to assign the story, is essentially what we're saying. So in no way are we trying to minimize anyone's pain. We understand pain exists, etc. Just understand that there's a way out.
Well, and again, is a way through.
There you go, through. Excuse me.
Because it's a perspective, and I would never tell someone.
You know what I mean? We're not trying to minimize.
No, not at all. The reason is we're talking about. We're not making it minimized. But the thing is,
I just know how hard it is being in the perspective of not getting it yet, and thinking like, oh, they're just minimizing this. And guys, I've been in your shoes. I know that it may sound like, oh, wait, are they just minimizing? They don't know my struggle. They never. No.
No, but and I know what you're saying, because when I went through stuff too, and right after it happened, people were like, it's gonna get better. Yeah. And at that moment, I'm like, F you. Mm-hmm. Don't tell me it's gonna get better. So that's what the point Mike's trying to make. We're not telling you to override. I'm not telling you to make a quantum leap from this point to that point. You will move through it. And however you move through it is exactly what it is you need to move through it. And I think we're just offering up understanding of how perspectives work, and we happen to use what society looks as something that's egregious, like really bad. And sometimes we do that to make the point more understanding than light. So sometimes we use that, but we're not by any means taking it.
Yeah, we understand anything. Racism, sex, abortion, rape, these are all very touchy topics, and the reason we bring them up is words are very clumsy. I love when Frank says that. These are the things that come up in our daily lives that we're putting our attention on or allowing to be defining things about us, when rather than allowing this stuff to come in and affect us, we need to be affecting it. So we need to be putting our attention on what we want to see and how we want to move forward. Yeah. Is that a good way to say it?
It is. So at this point in this transmission, that's what we'll do. We'll look ahead. So we're using examples to bring us into what you could call a negative perspective. But as we move forward, let's keep it all positive. All right? Because that's what,
There's no other way to live.
Yeah.
There isn't.
Well, there is.
But that's the loop we're stuck in, the rat race of the cycle.
It's just not preferential to, it doesn't work within the physiology of who we are. It actually wears us out. So when you're working in that field, it's a field of dis-ease. And that's where the word comes from. We're not at ease, or dis-ease. What's at ease? Ease is going with the flow of the river. Dis-ease is swimming upstream. All right? And if the object is to move flow effortlessly, dis-ease is trying to get upstream. And you're working against it. But by all means, do it. Because if you do create dis-ease can teach you how to become peaceful.
Often
anger can teach you how to be compassionate. It really does, because it's the opposite side of it. Now, once you understand to moving these laws, it doesn't mean I don't come up against anger and all these other things. I just don't hold on to it. I don't fight it. This side of the mountain is better than this side of the mountain. So what are we going to do with the side of the mountain we don't like? Let's get rid of it. Right? It would topple over. It supports each other. Just climb on the mountainside in which you like to climb, and leave the other side for those who like to climb that mountainside. And when you get to the peak, you shake hands. Hey, what are you doing here? Where'd you come up? Oh, I came up this way. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, you can come up that way? New perspective added into my life. But if I slice that mountain down to half, nothing to climb at all. And that's what we're talking about here. Live and let live. Just look at what you want. Let everyone else do their own thing. And be about your way. And what will happen is when you start doing that, people are like, hey, you look like you have a good time. What are you doing? And I'm like, it's not what I'm doing. It's how I feel about what I'm doing. Like, what do you mean? I'm like, don't try to do what I do, because I might not be doing this tomorrow, and what I'm doing isn't my success. How I feel about what I'm doing. What do you, get into that feeling. And when you get into that feeling, it'll occur to you to do something. And this is what we call our gift, or our purpose, So all of a sudden you came into this planet, and I believe we came here with understanding what theme we were going to carry. And once you get to that place of feeling good, regardless of what's happening, how do you do that? One way, it's not necessary, but one way is close my eyes and go into the center. All of a sudden, when I slow down thought, I shouldn't say slow down thought, when I don't attach the thought, I let thoughts go through me like wind going through a screen door. And all of a sudden, I start to feel it. The thought goes, so I don't grab it. And all of a sudden, I feel good. And all of a sudden, bam, a thought comes in. Like, wow. Let me act on this thought, take it as far as I can, with no insistence of anything happening, and see where it takes me. And then by Friday, happy hour, I got this beautiful story. You're not going to believe what happened to me. But can you imagine someone said, as you leave happy, hey, this is the story I want to hear next week. What? I want this to happen to you. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, I'm not going to be here.
Yeah. Are you just ruined the story?
Yeah, like, what? You want me to act out this story? That's just ridiculous. So now, no. It's like, you go forth. And whatever field you're in, if you're angry, you're getting like, I need a shot of Jack. What happened? Freaking leg down. I'm like, please pull me over. Dad, like, really? Yeah, freaking, what the hell is the world coming to? How was your week? Well, it's funny you mention that. It's like, you're an asshole, get the hell out of here. Because the two energies are too much to handle, right, at that time. But, what energy field you're in, go within, and then open your eyes and act on the impulses, just like you're following a GPS. GPS knows how to get you to where you want to go.
And when we say act on the impulse, we mean what feels good.
Yeah, you will have a thought. It might, and it's not going to come out like a GPS says, make a right-hand turn.
No.
Yeah, it's not direct. Actually, it is direct.
So, but like a big thing, at least I did this, and that helped me understand this more, is I began to trust myself. I knew that I held every answer that I had a question about. And it wasn't until that moment until I really took off. And I need you guys at home to understand, I know that feeling of being like, am I doing this right? Those feelings, am I doing this right? These questions we ask, am I sitting the right way when I meditate? And all these weird things, that's because we went to school and we were taught that there's one right way to do everything. We went through this learned school system, and that's why Frank and I talk about unlearning certain things, etc.
Yeah, but also there was a part in school that did.
But that's why we push in everything. Yeah. Oh, of course,
because every time
that's a duality.
Yeah, but every answer, every question we had always had an answer. So remember in school, the teacher would give you flashcards.
Mm-hmm.
So the answer and the question are on the same card.
That's kind of like life.
They always are. Because in some instance, the question, flip over, there's the answer. But if you looked at the answer, that would have been the question. Because we always perceive the question with the answer.
Well, one thing that you
always... Imagine someone's like, I got the answer, what's the question? I'll let you know later.
One thing you always said to me that really struck a chord and helped was, what is it? You have, when you're asking the question, you already know.
The answer. Well, you have access to the answer.
Yeah, you already know. The reason you're asking it is not because
well, your higher self knows it. You have access to the answer.
And I love that because like that's how I rest easy knowing that, because I'm like, I love this.
Yeah. You know what's funny? Like, remember when you were a kid, like you get these books in school and you had like, and it was funny because they would put them on the back, but they would put them backwards, so it'd make a little more work if you flip. And the answer is like, you want the answer, it's on page 96, and it gives you all the answers. And you look at it. So here's the question. The thing was, can you memorize it without going to the back and getting the answers? I'm like, yeah, I know how to turn pages. Now I can go play ball with my buddies, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like the universe is saying, it's like this game we play, the universe is like, well, the answer's on the back. But if you want to struggle, go right ahead. And what's funny is back then, that argument was fruitless. Like people are like, oh, you're just lazy. But right now, it's like, if they knew that we have Google.
I was just going to say, the answers are
one day it'll be like, you know, someone asks you a question that's known, well, all of a sudden I'll interface in my brain with Google and I'll come up with the answer. Oh, you have good memory. I'm like, no, I have good interfacing. And prior to Google, what was our interfacing? Akashic Records, the Matrix, whatever you want to call it. When we go inward and get to that sacred place, with some call it.
It is absolutely a sacred place.
You actually tap into the Matrix, but you'll pull out, like, think of it,
a source. Call it whatever you want.
You'll pull out the information pertaining to the experience in which you want to move forward, or what you came here to have, however you look at it, right? Think about this. Why didn't Mozart pull out all the great music? He only pulled out the stuff he did, like Beethoven. We got, you know, all this great music. And it's like, all of a sudden, years later, then, you know, Robert Plant and Jimmy Page pull out Stairway to Heaven and other music. They were all there at the same time. So when Beethoven plucked out the Ninth Symphony, and just to make it dramatic, say right next to it in the catalog area was Stairway to Heaven. If Beethoven just grabbed, like, oh,
a little bit over,
and had a different beat because but he had the Ninth Symphony, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be a funny movie to watch. Like you mix it up, and all of a sudden, like Jimmy, you know, can you imagine lyrics to that? You know, all the beats, but yet it was there. But when Beethoven put it, he then added to it his initial frequency to it.
Of course.
So then he brought it to life.
And that's a point we gotta hammer home, is that everything exists and
already.
Nothing, like, I mean, in the future, etc. We're simply pulling it out and bringing it into matter, into a chair. We're making it into, and that's the cool part. And
it's like the ultimate grab bag. You have no idea what's out there.
But that's the gift of being a human. That's what an animal can't do. This. That's what makes us special.
Well, yeah, I can't speak for animals, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
but you know, but it is. It's like the ultimate grab bag. Like, yeah, look what I found. What are you gonna do with it? I have no idea.
One thing.
But it's like, what is this? You know, because there were people in history and time that discovered something, but like, what are you gonna do with it? I'm like, yeah, I'm not really sure yet. Not sure. You know, the guy who invented the car was back in the 13 BC. No, I was kidding. It's like, yeah. Wasn't he had to wait all these years till Ford came on and rediscovered it? It's like, oh, I just made that up, so please don't run with that. Someone's probably Googling, that's not true.
It doesn't sound right.
Yeah, it does. All right. A lot I say.
One thing I do want to say about when you connect to this source, like we're talking about, this field, etc., during your modality, it doesn't just happen during meditation. Okay, this can happen during. You can get extremely zoned in when you're running.
Anything works.
Yeah, there's so many ways to do this. Meditation is a way to turn off your senses and allow yourself to truly connect. And it's not like you hear an answer. It's all feeling. And it's weird. It feels as if your cells are alive, your body. And I really like to drive this home too, because people, again, we've gone through school, so am I doing this right, etc. I'm not doing it. No,
Yeah.
no, you are.
Yeah.
Trust me, you're doing everything right because we were all there. So just keep going and understand your body knows what it's doing. And as long as you just allow yourself to just be one with yourself, and when those thoughts come in, and they will, just know that they're not your thoughts. That's the ego talking. It's your brain working.
Yeah.
So allow those thoughts to pass by. And
well,
I guess,
take them and just shift the perspective on it.
yeah,
so that's
or
more favorable.
exactly, even better. And that's what we mean when we're talking about this.
That's alchemy, baby.
It is.
That's what alchemy
really
does.
is.
It takes.
It really is.
Yeah, it takes a certain metal like copper and turns into gold. So what we're doing is we're taking, and copper in this case would be, a metal that's less worthy of or valued than copper. So I'm taking a thought that I look as deemed as non-preferential, less value, and I can turn it into one that's more valuable to me that I prefer. That's the power we have. And I like to finish up with a couple of things. One is we are our internal things. So that's why if anything is ever taken from you, right? I think I brought this up last time, but if you were in a room and it was stacked from ceiling to floor of money, all right, and the building caught on fire, and you notice on one corner of the room in this building there was also a printing press that printed the money. Oddly enough, most people would grab the money in the what I call classic physics thing. They would go for the substance. But the thing that made the money was the printer press that has wheels on it. You can get out of the building easier. Let the material world go because we created it. We literally created it, so you don't have to hold on to it. Let it go. Experience it while you have it. Don't go to the car lot and buy a car and then hand the keys off to someone next to you. No, go experience it until the moment in which it's time to move on to it. You aren't the car, you just have an experience from the car. So who we truly are, we are the printing press that's in the corner. That's where the value of who we are. Who we truly are is the unit that actually creates and manifests in the physical world. And then we put it out there. So remember, the outside world is to look at and say, oh, I like that, don't like that, let's expand upon that. Let's move from that. That's who we truly are. And when you come to understand that, you then become better at this game, more heightened at this game. There's still going to be challenges. The printing press is still going to need to put paper in it. You're still going to have to, I have to create new paper so one never copies mine.
And when that happens, remember, that's the universe, that's God, that's whatever you want to call this, source, that's it making you change, forcing you to change,
offering you to change.
Yeah, offering.
Yeah, because we do have free will not to.
Oh, absolutely. I just mean, often crisis will happen because
it's almost
the world putting you needs you to look at a different perspective.
Yeah, so you're trying to get a bug out of your house, you want to kick it, even though it starts
and
running towards you.
I kind of do mean forcing, because like an accident, things are forced upon us.
Actually, in the end, they are.
Like I do feel like certain things, like you would never wish certain things, like we go back.
Yeah, it's almost like the universe says, okay, you have 30 years to get this right. If not, I'm just gonna kick you out of here.
Well, but like it's those car accidents, it's those very serious kind of life-changing things that, of course, you didn't create yourself getting into a horrible situation.
Consciously.
Like that. Yeah, consciously. Yeah. But good point. Great point.
Because
unconsciously we did.
Yeah.
We ultimately did.
Yeah.
But
we're not here to blame.
Exactly, because that's not our position.
Yeah.
But or not our
Because after all, it just becomes another experience.
And that's the thing. But like that's that shift that sometimes brought on by very heavy, and it's hard, and those are those overwhelming life moments that you need to realize. Okay, what am I going to learn from this, and how am I going to grow from this? Not why is this happening to me.
And also understand, too, the other aspect that I struggled with for a long time, and when I finally came to an understanding, as best I can, is we know nothing. And the way I'll explain it, I don't want to just have it as a catchphrase like Socrates says, I know nothing. But can you imagine you're reading a book and you're halfway through the book and someone says, or even you say, I'm going to try to explain this entire book, but you're only halfway through it. You only know what you've read. You have no idea what's ahead. But that's what keeps you reading. Stop trying to figure it out. There will be a moment when that book is done. And guess what? You open out another book. But because I read 1,000 books, doesn't mean I can guess what this book is going to read me. Does it? No. And who is the author of the book? God, your higher self? I'm the one reading it. I'm the one experiencing the book. Because the author can't experience the way I can. That's what we're here to do. Stop trying to figure it out. Go along with it. There will be the oh my God. But if you just say, I'm going to go read the last chapter, you're still not going to know any more about the book. We are not supposed to know, because that would take the fun away. It ultimately would take the fun away. All right? I can read a book twice, but when I read a book the second time, I'm going in from a different angle, so I can generate excitement.
That's how you know you're expanding. Every time it's going to be
That's
different.
it. But if you read a book for the first time and you're getting into it, you don't want it to end. And the cool thing that lets me know this book will end. But there'll be another book, and another book, and another book. It's infinite. How many lifetimes do I have to live to read every book? Not even every book on the planet, but every book I would be interested in. I can't count that high because it's infinite. Each book is the corporeal experience you have. Chapter 1, 5 years old. Ba, ba, ba. The end, 98 years old. Another book. But the reader goes to the next book that read chapter 1 to chapter 90. And then picks up and starts over another book with chapter 1. That's who we really are. We're the readers of the books. And we'll never stop reading. Even though, but we mistake ourselves and think we're the book. We are not the book. We're the readers of the book.
The mind being the book. Remember that.
Yeah, the ego being the book.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that voice
There's
chatter, that head in your voice. That
Get
head
lost
in
in
your
the
voice.
book.
Or that voice in your head, excuse me.
Yeah, get lost in the book. That's the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Get lost in it. But know this, when it ends, you don't die.
But as long as you recognize it, yeah. That's the thing.
See, that's why I never read as a kid. I thought we died after the book. I'm like, hey, I'm going to that shit.
Yeah.
Frank, why don't you read? Well, I read, but I don't finish. Therefore, I never die.
Superstitious.
It's like, well, this guy's going to go far as life isn't he? And that is my perspective shift. Thanks for coming and tuning in.
Thank you for joining us
great,
at
Mike.
this most recent broadcast.
Oh, man, that was good.
Always good.
Yeah, that was fun.
Oh, man.